Video Games, the Movie, the Podcast is a podcast where Maxie and Dan discuss video games, with nearly 20 episodes spanning 20 years of great video game movie content. We're about to release our latest episode on Professor Layton and the Eternal Diva. I'm Maxie.
I'm Dan.
Oh, I caught you off guard with that one.
Incredible. It really does start like that, huh?
It just starts with an advertisement for the franchise when you're already watching the movie.
Okay. Yeah, welcome. So this week, or this month we watched Professor Layton, the Eternal Diva. Let's see. I don't immediately have any news to think of, but, what games you playing?
Been playing a lot of Victoria 3. That came out, I think late last month, I want to say, and I've been pretty obsessed with that. This is not a video game, but I did want to talk about it. I also saw Glass Onion yesterday.
Oh,
the new,
I need to see
the
that.
new Benoit Blanc. It's so fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
My God, just incredible. Incredible film.
Hell yeah, I'll have to see it. Let me think. What am I up to? Okay, let's see. I've been playing Sonic Frontiers. Very good game. Very good game.
My understanding is that it has received a mixed reception, but instead of like the usual Sonic the Hedgehog game way, it's more in the sense of like, no, this is a good game. People are just being kind of weird about it.
Yeah. Overwhelmingly positive on Steam. Very fun game. They really figured out how to... Sonic works surprisingly well for an open world, and I'm very glad that Ian Flynn got to write for it, because he's good at writing Sonic characters.
That really does sound like it was a big boost, because I've heard good things about his writing, and after Sonic Forces, after the game where it's like, war is awful, Knuckles, that's why they call it war. I think some fresh blood was probably smart.
I do find it interesting because I'm on the second island, and that's the one where Knuckles is. And a lot of the stuff I've encountered with, like, the Knuckles scenes is very reflective of, like, oh yeah, Knuckles, like, was a military commander in Sonic Forces. And a surprisingly, like, it works really well. I'm really enjoying it. Let's see, other games. I finally got around to getting the true ending for Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Really cool final boss. Nice. Let me think. I also, while I was at my mom's, for Thanksgiving, I tried out 2 games on my Switch that I had bought but had not played. I played a little bit of Moon RPG. Really cool game. I think it's funny that, these, like, experienced JRPG devs who had been involved with stuff like Chrono Trigger and Super Mario RPG, in their quest to create an anti-RPG, basically made a point-and-click adventure game.
Yeah. And, about as expected in a point-and-click adventure game from that era. Some of the puzzles are kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
But, no, that game has definitely had some cool ideas, even if I ended up kind of bouncing off of it.
Yeah.
Great sense of style, for sure.
Yeah, I fucking love how it looks. I love that it's got, like, this, like, weird music selection, and, how, like, the monsters are, well, not monsters, they're just animals. The animals are, like, rendered in claymation. It's a really neat game. I like it. Let's see, what else have the other game I tried out a little bit was Live Alive. I've always wanted...
Oh, God, yes! God, yes!
It's a cool game, but I did rage quit it because I accidentally put in Sundown's name wrong. It was put in a name for this cowboy criminal, and I put in the blank like the Mojave something or other, and it was just
so he's the Mojave kid or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I always hate it when games do that. Like, come on, be a little more straightforward.
Yeah, just put the first and last parts of it there, so I know.
Oh no, but listen, Live Alive is one of my favorite RPGs of all time. It was huge stylistic influence on Our Stormy Present, which is the tabletop RPG I made, kind of drawing from retro JRPGs.
Yeah,
that reminds me, actually, I have no idea if this podcast is an even remotely useful place to ask, but I'm working on an RPG off and on, and I need to figure out if there's anybody out there who has some time to just do art assets for it. So if you're interested in that, or you got a lead on that, just email me, maxinightly@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Fucking I cannot pay you. It would have to be something that you're just doing on the side, and I totally understand that is going to be a deal breaker in 99% of cases. It's just one of the I've been thinking about this a lot, what do you think it was like for Toby Fox when he was making Undertale? And it's well, I can't draw good enough for this. Do you think it was a thing where he was oh, I'll go to my friend Temmie. She's expressed interest in game design before, and I don't think she's too busy. Or do you think he was just fuck, man, I gotta find somebody?
That is a good question. I would have to look into Temmie's history, but I imagine he just my immediate assumption is it's probably like with Fangamer, where he just knew some people on an Earthbound fan forum.
That would make sense. Here's the problem. I know a fair amount of artists, but they're all broke and or very mentally ill, so that is going to limit the amount of free work that they can do, even though I am very lovable and everybody wants to be my friend.
This is true.
And know me carnally.
Yes, this is true. Let me think. Oh, right. And of course I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV. I'm doing side stuff. Earlier today I did some Bozja content. Just the quest leading up to it, but it is a cool storyline. There's a fun little duty where you get to go into someone's mind and fight an inner demon, and you like summon up visages of your friends to help you. I thought that was neat.
That is neat.
Yeah, I think that's it for me for gaming. So let's get into this movie. Let's see. So as you mentioned before, I do want to note about this movie. They did get, as far as I know, they did get the game voice actors to do the voices for this.
Luke definitely sounds like Luke. I can't really remember what Layton sounds like, because at least I've only played the first Professor Layton game, and I don't remember too much voice acting being in that. Actually, no. Did I play the second one? I may have played the second one as well.
I've never really played them myself, but I've seen them get played. I know that. Oh wow! From 2009. I know they had little voice clips for you solved the puzzle or whatever. I don't remember it super well, but now I kind of want to play them. Like Maxie said at the start, it opens with an ad for the movie that you're watching. At least the version I found, which had an English dub.
I'm pretty sure I found the same English dub. And we start the film proper with Layton and Luke in a clock tower, and Professor Layton's giving a little lecture to Luke, and he's solving a puzzle as he's doing it, and it is a very video game puzzle. He has to pick up these little these funny shaped star, sun, and moon gears. Yeah, they're disguised as floor tiles.
And he has to put them into a machine so the door will open. And they exit out to a clock tower in London.
And it turns out it's Big Ben.
Yeah, it's Big Ben.
We get this zoom out and this nice shot of all of London. And then they make their way to the ground, and somehow this was tied to the latest scheme of Layton's nemesis, Dunparo.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but
he's just like hanging out down there in disguise. He's just like around, so I don't know.
Yeah, he was disguised as an old lady. They like chase him down, and we get a whole like narration from Luke. So Professor Layton, greatest detective ever, professor. He's an archaeologist. Luke is his apprentice. He can talk to animals, kind of. Was that
a thing in the source material?
I don't know. Maybe.
Because here's the thing. As far as I can tell, I looked into this, and as far as I can tell, this movie's just like straight up canon to the games. Like this is an actual interquel instead of like a weird, non-canon OVA thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he like it's very I'm glad it's canon. That's great. We have like he explains he's Professor Layton's apprentice. He's going to be a true gentleman. Which I guess that's just his job title.
Let's say it's his way of life, man.
There's like a bit where he's like practicing the I accuse bit that Layton does throughout the movie.
This is so cute. He's just like, the one who holds this key to this mystery is you. Is you. Is you.
Yeah. And then Layton comes in and he's like pointing at him.
Gets all embarrassed.
But Layton's got for them a record. Something left over from a case from some years ago. There was once a girl named Janice Quatlin, whatever. She was a student of Layton's and went on to become a successful opera singer. And she had, for some reason, sent them invitations to an opera and a letter. We get the title card. And they're at this big fancy opera house by the sea called the Crown Patone. Janice is like performing in this opera. There's this guy named Oswald Wesler performing this giant, weird, every instrument possible organ called the Detrigan. We go over the letter. So, Melina Whistler, who was a friend of Janice,
and Oswald's daughter,
died a year ago. But one day, very recently, she came to Janice, allegedly alive again, but in the form of a little girl. She explains that she had been given the gift of eternal life. And we cut backwards from the opera to like them on the way to the opera. They're like in a car with Emmy, who is like I guess another like understudy of Layton.
Hey, can I just say, I have no fucking idea why they sequenced this like this. Like,
yeah,
you already have a framing device that does essentially nothing for the movie. I don't know why they like start at the opera and then flash back to before the opera and then they go back to the opera. It's weird.
Yeah, they don't really do like loads of non-linear storytelling in this. It's just this one bit. She drives them there. She teases Luke a bit by calling him his second assistant, or calling him Layton's second assistant. He does not like this. He's the number one assistant. And so from what they can tell, with in a city like London, if you have enough money and connections, you can buy yourself eternal life. And that's why everyone has come to this opera, which is about the Eternal Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just sort of go over this little story real quick. There was once a kingdom called Ambrosia.
Mm-hmm.
The people adored their queen, and one day she fell terribly ill and could not be saved. And just as they were able to create a remedy that could save her, she died.
Mm-hmm.
This remedy was the elixir of eternal life. The people mourned their loss, and then they all drank the elixir, and supposedly they lived forever, awaiting the rebirth of their queen.
Yeah.
And maybe the elixir is still out there too.
So yeah, part of this whole conceit is that the Kingdom of Ambrosia is only mostly mythical, because there has been at least one artifact recovered from the kingdom by, I believe, a colleague of Layton's, which is like a partial fragment of the kingdom's seal or coat of arms, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like imagine if everything about Atlantis or Lemuria was exactly the same, except that we had, like, one flawlessly dated, like, banner that was definitely, like, from a royal house of Atlantis. And it's just like, I guess Atlantis was real. Somewhere.
Yep.
I also wanted to say there's a very interesting choice in the dub of this opera sequence, which is they don't translate any of the singing. And I don't think they translate the singing for any of the movie, which I think is a very interesting decision. And honestly, it's a decision I really like, because one, it keeps the focus on the tune and the performance. And I think that's smart, especially because this is very much like a family movie, I think. It's something that a lot of kids would be watching, and I think it would be difficult to make a song that, like, kids understand, but that's also good, lyrically speaking.
Right.
And also, like, this is definitely the American view, and I could be wrong, but it's my understanding that it's sort of the Anglophone view in general. But opera is very much seen here as an art that is usually performed in an unknown language. Like, we think of opera as, like, an Italian thing, a German thing, maybe, like, a French or Spanish thing.
Right.
So, you know, it feels fitting in that regard. I also think, honestly, this whole sequence is very striking to me just because this movie has a great sense of, like, aesthetics, and it's, I don't know if, like, lovingly animated is necessarily accurate, but, like, it's certainly very well animated.
They definitely cared.
This also struck me during the sequence when Emmy is driving them over. Honestly, that sequence had, like, kind of Lupin the Third vibes to me. Like, how the cars were all built.
Yeah, it really gives me, like, Lupin vibes, and I love that. After the performance ends, like, Luke gives, like, a big applause, but, like, he's the only one doing it, and, like, everyone's just sort of looking at him, and he gets embarrassed and stops. But what happens next is what the crowd was actually waiting for. One person, or the like owner of the theater, like, comes out. They're, like, moving weird, like a sort of, like, marionette almost. And they're announcing that tonight, one person from this audience will receive the gift of eternal life. And
now everybody during the actual performance of the opera was, like, completely passive. Like, they didn't give a shit. They're not here for the opera. But as soon as he says this, like, people start raucously applauding.
Yeah, I love that. And in order to win eternal life, you must win a game. And if you lose your life.
So this part's weird because he is just straight up lying, and I don't know why.
Yeah, this movie is a death game where nobody dies.
The only time people are even at risk of dying is, like, essentially by accident at the end. Is weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, people start running for the exits, but they get blocked by staff. Everybody who's, like, caught in the aisles ends up falling down these massive trapdoors. But then a man from Scotland Yard appears, Inspector Grosky, this man with this billowing chest hair and this huge pompadour. He runs onto the stage to handcuff the mystery man, and he just declares an end to the proceedings. But it turns out that he was moving around like a puppet because he is a puppet, and he's also a balloon, I guess?
Yeah, he turns into a big balloon, and he becomes big and round and flies away.
Yeah, the ceiling of the theater has opened up to reveal the starry sky above, so he just shoots off through that.
And, like, the Inspector Grosky gets, like, sent flying. The announcer is, the owner is, like, announcing over the PA that the challenge is going to begin now.
And then the whole theater starts rumbling, and the exits are no longer blocked. Layton and Luke run outside, and they realize the island that the theater was built on is actually a tremendous boat, and it is just set sail for God knows where.
Like, they're, like, gonna try to swim to... Like, some of the people are trying to swim to shore, but they find out you can't because the waters are infested with, like, robot sharks.
Yeah, what's going on with the robot animals?
Yeah,
like, a few of them appear, but they're just sort of there. I don't know. I guess that again, maybe that's something that, like, well, if you've played Professor Layton in the Azran Legacy, you would know that that fucking God, what's this idiot's name? Duke Gascone or whatever. He's always making these cyborgs. You know how it is.
Yeah. It is, like, does seem to be, like, a thing. They just have, like, animals that have been cybernetically augmented, and Luke can't, like, communicate with them because they've got the augmentation.
It's really funny to me that they introduced the concept that Luke can talk to animals, kind of, just so that he can fail to talk to animals when it's important.
Yes, it's fucking like when you build a character in an RPG and you give him a skill, but you never get to use it just because of how, like, the campaign's laid out. So Janice, like, meets up with Layton and Luke. They're, like, looking around. They haven't seen, like, the little girl. Apparently they saw the little girl earlier, but they don't know where she is now. And it's time to begin, the game, with puzzle number 001. You have to look for the oldest thing in the theater, or you have to look for the oldest thing
you can see
and gather around it.
So the trick here is the ship is filled with a bunch of, like, archaeological artifacts and fossils and so on, but because the ceiling's open, you can see the stars.
Which have existed for billions of years.
So not a puzzle. This is a riddle.
Yeah, this is a riddle.
Puzzle 2 is also a riddle. Like, we'll get there. I mean, I guess that one's, like, kind of a puzzle because there's an execution aspect, but you know.
Yeah, I think there are some puzzles, but there are some riddles. So they figure out, you gotta go to the, like, where the roof is open so you can see the stars. And those who get it wrong go down more trapdoors or get caught by the masked guards. Then they get, like, puzzle 002. I do love that the puzzles are, that it's, like, 002 and not, like, 1 or 2. Just, it gives, like, a sense of scale.
Well, you know, it's like in the games. There's always, like, 150 puzzles or something in those.
Yeah.
So puzzle 002 is go to where you can see the largest crown. And this one I actually like a lot, because it's a double fake out. Because once again, there's a lot of like regular crowns scattered about the ship, exhibited on little plinths and so on. Luke's immediate instinct is he remembers that the ship is named the Crown Patone, and another guest recalls and describes a large sign near the theater's entrance with the theater's name on it. So a lot of people start heading to the entrance, but Layton starts leading them in the other direction, and Luke protests this at first, but then after a bit of dialogue, Layton's like, well, they primed us to not go for the immediate answer with the first one so that people might not notice that there's a second false answer on puzzle 2. And then we pan out to see that the entire top deck of the ship is built to look like a huge crown. Mm-hmm. This is such a cool shot. I love this.
Yeah. I fucking love it. Yeah, it's cool. We get to meet like the various other attendees of note here. We get like Amelia. She's a schoolgirl who's like really smart. She was invited by Oswald. Of course, there's Oswald, who we mentioned before. Mm-hmm. There's Annie Dretch, who is a mystery writer. Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Radley, the socialite. Mm-hmm. Frederick Berglund, president of, I assume it's a shipping corporation.
Yeah. And Pierre Starbuck, who is a football legend who got his leg like messed up and wants to like get eternal life to like try to regain his strength. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I think those are. Oh, there's also like the ship captain who doesn't really come up much.
Yeah, I don't remember if we got. I know he says his name, but I didn't bother writing it down.
Yeah, I found it. It's Curtis O'Donnell. He there's also like this archaeologist who's like studied the Ambrosian Society.
Yeah, we don't get his name here, but he'll later introduce himself as Marco Brock, amateur historian.
Mm-hmm. So like they have to they get out in their lifeboats. They see the biggest crown, which is in fact the ship itself.
Mm-hmm. We get a bit of dialogue. So Oswald explains that the girl who is called Melina, he says that she's just a girl he adopted, and he calls her Melina as a term of endearment. Which, gonna be honest, man, that's a
weird one.
That's the worst alibi you could come up with. That makes you sound insane. But we also get a moment where, while Luke and Layton are busy like lowering the lifeboats so they can row away, Melina goes up to Janice and tells her, Layton can't win the game. Stop interfering so that you can let us have our wish. Mm-hmm. And then, sorry, go on.
I do think it's funny that they fucked up by inviting the guy who's good at puzzles.
Listen, I'm not going to... This is not really a spoiler or anything, but it is really funny that this is essentially the same premise as Glass Onion.
Oh, I am gonna have to watch Glass Onion.
Who invited the genius detective to my puzzle party? Come on. Not cool.
Yeah. So once they like solve the puzzle, the lifeboats like transform into speedboats and like start like going off on their own, or just automatically going off somewhere. Also, fun thing that happens, like Inspector Grovsky earlier, like he got sent into the water. He has to like swim and like escape from the sharks, and he eventually like gets back on the boat so he can resume the investigation. And like the little girl Melina is here, and he
shoves him off.
She pushes him off,
and then once everybody is on the lifeboats, the rest of the passengers who didn't think to do that are presumably trapdoored again. He gets back on the ship, finds it completely empty, a couple submarines are about to depart with all the captives on one of them. And he's just like standing there scratching his head when the ship starts blowing up and he gets dunked into the sea a third time.
Yeah.
It's so fucking good.
Just constantly in peril. The like ships go off in all their directions.
So specifically, there's 2 submarines that are launched from the ship after Grosky falls into the sea. And then at the same time, the lifeboats like what's the word I'm looking for? They transformers a bit. And it turns out they're actually like these weird steam-powered speedboats. And they start like zooming along towards their destination.
Yeah.
And then after all this happens, we cut back to Emmy, who is apparently investigating the disappearance of a young couple's daughter. She asks to see a photograph, and they show it to her. We, as the audience, do not get to see it yet. But, there's obviously only so many possibilities that tie into the cast we've seen so far.
Yeah.
So, figure it out.
We cut to, the next morning. Everyone on, the boat, on, the speedboats are, wrapped up in blankets, and they reach their destination, a mysterious island. Meanwhile, Emmy is, conducting her own investigation when, she, speaks with Dr. Schrader about, the Ambrosian artifact.
The Ambrosian artifact, which is just, on a desk, holding down some newspaper. Bro, that's the only one of those there is.
Yeah, and then she sees, a little TV news report saying that a submarine came to shore with many missing guests who said they were captured and forced into a mysterious puzzle game. And so she runs off to go find out more about this.
Yep.
The guests all are on this beach, and they find a table with a whole feast ready for them.
They also find this stone menor, which has the full Ambrosian seal engraved on it. So Marco Brock is like, this must be the location of the Ambrosia Kingdom, or at least the former location of it. There's a good shot where they get to the table and they start eating, and Berglund starts pouring some wine, but then gets distracted by a discussion everybody's having, so he just keeps pouring as it overflows.
Yeah, and at first they're like, wait, is this part of the puzzle? But they eat anyways. I think they get something that says that, oh, this is just a meal. They chill out on the beach for a little while, and Luke gives a seashell to the little girl Melina, and she's humming the theme from the opera and the movie. And she says it's something she learned from the sea. And then wolves howl, and Melina disappears. They are told their break is over, and they get chased by wolves to the location of the next puzzle.
What's the deal with the wolves? Why? These are not a puzzle. They're just here.
Yeah, this is just an endurance challenge.
I will say, so the wolves are chasing them, and they end up chasing the remaining guests to a river, and my immediate thought is, okay, so some chickens and sacks of grain are gonna come out of the forest next, right?
Oh, that would be a good one, but they've got a little bit of a different puzzle to deal with. See, there are some cages hanging above, and you can lower them with ropes. So the trick, what it seems to be, is in order to safely get to the castle without being attacked by the wolves, you would presumably lower the cages onto them. But no, you actually have to lower the cages onto yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the wolves can't, use that as, a sort of, protective shield.
Yeah, the bars are close enough that the wolves can't get through, but, the cages themselves are light enough that you can pick them up and carry them.
Mm-hmm.
So, basically, the group is split into 3 at this point. A few of them, including Oswald, attempt to trap the wolves. They screw up. They end up, cornered on top of their cage. Most of the rest of the guests, they figure out what Layton and Luke and Janice are doing, and they trap themselves successfully without issue. Layton, Luke, and Janice trap themselves, and they have their little moving shield, and then they just trip and drop the cage and don't attempt to pick it back up?
It's very light. They could have done it, but instead they just get chased by wolves some more.
Yeah, they end up finding a little cabin in the woods and seek shelter in there, and it just happens to contain the perfect assortment of random junk for them to build a functioning helicopter. Which...
Yeah, and it's very fun. They saw a barrel in half. They've got
a ceiling fan that they use for the main propeller.
Mm-hmm.
It is a cute little design, I will say that.
Yeah, it is a charming little thing. It's also, not quite a perfect helicopter. It just, it can go up in the air, but it's basically just hopping around.
Yeah, it's difficult to pilot and not the most aerodynamic, but it works well enough to get them to the castle on the other side of the river.
Mm-hmm. They get to the castle. Everyone's here. They assemble at the courtyard, and it's time for puzzle 004. So
I can't tell whether this one is genius or really dumb.
It's so there are 4 doors, leading to 4 towers. Mm-hmm. You have to get to the king's chamber, and, in, the spaces between where each door leads, there's, there are some letters on the ground. Mm-hmm. And Luke, is able to determine by, writing down and, writing a bunch of notes that, 2 of them are K and G that are next to each other.
Yeah, and if you go in that door, it's K in G.
King.
He's right, so, props to him. But my immediate thought when I saw... So the letters are, K, G, H, and I, and my immediate thought was, is this something with, the knight? Is this, a chess thing? But then where do the N and the G come... Where did the N and the T come into it?
Yeah, I was thinking it was, a sort of, scrambled letters thing.
Yeah, I also thought maybe, G-H-I-J-K, is there, a J? Is there a secret J?
No.
So what I'm saying is I'm dumber than the 9-year-old.
Yes, we are all. It's just like Jeff Foxworthy said, you are not smarter than a 5th grader. So they figure out the solution. They go into the right door, but Layton's going to go off on his own. He gives Luke a little goodbye and just asks him if he's going to be okay. And he sets off on his own into a different door, and I believe Radley and
Starbuck
Starbuck follow after him because, well, he's the professor. He probably knows the real secret that'll get us the real prize. Mm-hmm. So Layton goes off on his own, and the 2 just go into this room and immediately fall into a trap hole.
Yep. Layton manages to grab onto a ledge, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll come back for you later, man with an injured leg."
Yeah. So it's fine. Don't worry. Nobody dies.
Yeah, nobody dies in this movie, including fucking Descole, even though he falls like 200 feet at one point.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine.
So they, so he, like, goes off on his own. Luke's party, like, enters a bedroom, and, they get, like, locked in this cage, and in comes a mysterious masked man, Jean Descole. Jean Descole.
Yeah.
Jean Descole. He announces that the game's almost over, and they, like, take Amelia away.
It's unclear as of this moment why he's picking Amelia specifically, because it's not puzzles. She has not solved I'm not sure she solved a single puzzle despite being, like, this genius chess prodigy.
Yeah, it's mostly been two people.
You know, I guess she solved the first two.
Yeah. There's also only 4 puzzles now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, they never get it up to 100. Descole cheaped out.
Uh-huh. He only had... Listen, he had there's a lot of money, going into, the big super, opera organ.
He went way over budget on the sharks, and listen, like, the insurance will cover some of the Crown Patone, but, like, it costs a lot of money to make a theater that's also a gigantic ship, and then blow it all up, and then there's 2 submarines? My god.
Yeah, he should have, like, handed them, like, fun puzzles for kids while they were, being, like, escorted away.
Professor, I've figured it out. Jagoni is jungle scrambled.
Professor, this image is both a face and 2 faces.
Professor, I've figured it out. Slylock can examine the soup to see if it's still hot.
Yeah, so, they go off and do that. I think this is around where, so, Emmy is, like, on a plane. She's, like, headed to the island, because I guess she's figured it out so far.
Mm-hmm.
And then she finds, like, Inspector Grofsky, floating on some debris, in his boxers, waving his clothes around as, like, a sort of flag.
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly shift over to, like, him on the plane and, like, just, like, hanging up the clothes and using the wind to dry them out.
Mm-hmm. So, they talk here about how the ship launched 2 submarines, but the news broadcast mentions that only 1 ever made it to the mainland. And I think Emmy mentions she has a theory on what happened here. I'm not clear on what happened here. I don't remember if it's ever explicitly said.
Yeah, I just assume that that's where, like, the like, guards and like, Descole were, like, just everyone who, like, wasn't a contestant.
That could make sense. I figure... That actually makes a lot more sense than what I was about to say, which was, did they use it to transport the Detrigan?
Oh, you know what? They probably also did do that.
Because, instruments are expensive, even if they aren't also, like, super science devices.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he's already so deep in the red over blowing up the ship. Cannot be emphasized enough.
Cannot. We cut over to Layton. He's found, like, this bedroom that's, like, full of pictures of Melina.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he finds, like, this bit of sheet music called A Song of the Sea. We get this, Melina sneaks up behind him. I really love what they do with, like, the, storyboarding here, where it's, like, it's, like, first person from Melina, and then, like, it stops when Layton's like, I knew you would be here. It's Melina. She's getting mad because he's interfering with the plans, and he, like, I think there's, like, a piano or something, because he starts, like, playing the first couple notes of the Song of the Sea. And then, like, Melina has, like, this freak out as the little girl who is being possessed by her, is, like, starting to, like, surface. And it all makes sense to Layton now.
Mm-hmm.
Luke and Janice, like, escape from captivity, but, they are quickly cornered, but...
It's so good, because, like, Luke just pretends to, like, stumble or get ill really fast, and the guard totally buys it, and then Janice just body checks him, and they run, and then there's just more guards.
Yeah, there's more guards,
but then Emmy and Grosky show up, and they start kicking ass.
Yeah, I'm so glad that they're here. They're here to fight.
Just like judo flipping guys, punching guys out. It's not what I expect from a Layton movie, but I'm into it.
Yeah. Emmy kicks a dude in the nuts, and we get a live Grofsky reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And then Layton shows up.
Yeah, and he shows up with Melina, and Emmy recognizes her as Nina, the missing girl she was searching for.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Oswald is, like, talking with, Descolet about, how, evil this whole plan is. Mm-hmm. But, like, he's kind of complicit in it.
Amelia is brought in, and Oswald explains that the Detrogan, will give her the gift of eternal life. I'm about to sneeze.
Mm-hmm.
Amelia is like, I don't want it. I want to give it to my grandfather who's sick. And Oswald is just reaching for, like, this wired up helmet, coming at her with it. Only for Layton to interrupt him. Everybody else has arrived in this room. And Layton gives us the big, like, info dump. Here's what's really going on. And so, my understanding of the Professor Layton series is that usually you will be presented with a seemingly fantastic set of circumstances, which will be revealed to be actually achieved through some advanced but reasonable science or some strange plot device. You know, like somebody masquerading as somebody else from the future, or, you know, all the townsfolk were actually robots, or, well, actually, the box doesn't kill you, it just makes you vividly hallucinate, but it's Nightmare on Elm Street rules, where, like, if you hallucinate that you die, then you die for real, and that sort of thing. This is kind of the opposite of that, where I feel like the elixir of life is arguably more plausible than what is actually going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, the Detrigan is not just an instrument. It has a secondary it has a secondary functionality, that is essentially a read-write machine for people's personalities. It has a recording of Melina's brain, but it can only maintain that for so long, which is why Oswald has grown increasingly desperate. Amelia was invited to the opera by him because he thought she would be the ideal host for Melina's memory. Being a young girl, maybe a bit younger than her, but still of a reasonable age, and one of advanced intellect, so she would line up with Melina's musical talent and hopefully be able to handle all this information. So what happened to Nina was essentially a failed attempt where the personality overwrite only partially took, so she sort of goes back and forth between her natural personality and the imprinted one. It's unclear to me why Melina Nina is, like, such a dick. Because we're going to find out that there's another clone of Melina who's just, like, normal and chill and helpful.
Yeah.
My personal theory is that, like, 7-year-olds are just kind of shitty. So, like, if you put a grown adult's brain in a if you image a grown adult's mind onto a 7-year-old's brain, like, they're just gonna turn out kind of shitty. Anyway, so Oswald at this point is very desperate. He just grabs Luke because he's nearby, and he attempts to use the machine on him, but an activation key has been removed from the machine, taken by Janice, who explains that she was actually the earliest test subject for this function of the Detrigan.
So she was, Janice sort of, like, allowed her to stay in her head, and she was, like, so happy to, like, have a body again because she was sick for a very long time. But she had a crisis of conscience, so she sent Layton the invitation to solve the puzzle. She needed to stop her father in any way she could, and, like, we get this whole thing where, like, it's, like, all of the scenes with, like, Janice in them earlier, but now, like, she's replaced with, like, Melina as she was when she was alive. It's a neat thing. I think it's neat. So Oswald is, like, really saddened and, like, coming to terms with this, when there's some rumbling again. And, like, Janice, like, grabs Melina, she runs, and Descalais, he doesn't care about any of this. He wants to bring back Ambrosia for himself.
So he just grabs Janice, Melina Janice, whatever. The wolves arrive in the room, and we get this close-up shot of one of their, you can see one of their ears, and it's like, oh, it's metal, they're robots or cyborgs or whatever the fuck. And Descalais is like, I need Janice's voice, Melina's memory, to enact my real plan, which is to bring the Kingdom of Ambrosia back to life. And he starts, like, the room, like, starts collapsing as they go up on this big platform. So his motivation is essentially, or rather, his plan is, there are 2 songs associated with the Kingdom of Ambrosia. One is the Song of the Sea, which Melina learned somehow, and the other is a musical score seen at the top of the Seal of the Kingdom. It's got this sort of, like, rainbow-looking series of arcs with a bunch of little crosses, and that's actually a musical score, which I thought was very clever, actually. I like that a lot. And that's the Song of the Stars. She knows the Song of the Sea. He believes that by having both of these songs performed in harmony, he will unlock the Kingdom of Ambrosia, make it reappear. But when he actually tries this, it doesn't do anything. And he gets really mad, and he just activates the Detrigan's secret third functionality, which turns his castle into, like, a fucked up Tim Burton mech.
Yeah, I fucking love this thing. It's like, it's all spindly, it's got, like, drills coming out of it.
It's got this cute little face. It looks so goofy.
Love it. Layton and Luke are able to, like, get the makeshift helicopter back. And, like, Descalais is, like, so mad that he's just, like, trying to raise the land in, like, anger. Melina, like, gets, like, knocked away in his rage, and, she's, like, hanging over the edge, and, Luke's gotta prove himself and go save her. He, like, has to, like, grab on, but he keeps, like, falling and, like, getting knocked around, but, eventually he, like, lands on one of the buzzsaws on this giant mech. And so he runs up the machine, he's, like, doing platforming, there's, like, a drill coming for them, but, Layton, who's in the machine, like, who's in, like, the helicopter. Yeah, he, like, gets in the way, and there's a big explosion.
But we know he's fine because of the framing device, so, like, whatever. And also we see him, like, immediately in the next shot, so.
Yeah. he's fine. Luke and Melina get to safety, and then Layton has a sword fight with Descalay.
To be clear, Descalay has a sword. Layton has a length of pipe, and it's so cool.
Yeah, I'm fucking down for this.
This part rules.
There needs to be more sword fights in your puzzle movie, and they should have more awkward improvised weapons.
What if they should have done insult sword fighting, and we just see the little dialogue UI pop up, and we get that little like shot where the world melts away, and Layton is like taking in his surroundings, but he's just like looking down. No, dairy farmer, that won't work.
Yeah, it's insult sword fighting, but it's like solving riddles. So they have like this sick sword /pipe fight, and Layton explains that Descalay only solved part of the puzzle. You see, the seal doesn't show 2 songs, but 3.
Mm-hmm. Because if you turn it upside down, instead of like people on the land looking up at the sky, it becomes a rising sun above a crescent moon, and the upside down score is also part of the harmony.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's a clever twist, I think. Yeah. Not bad.
Yeah, it's the Song of the Sun. So he like plays the song, and like as like all 3 parts start going, these like lights are coming out from like the coasts around the island, and rising up from the depths is this ruined city, Ambrosia. But the reality is, it's not like there are no living Ambrosians. It's just
some ruins.
It's just some ruins.
Anyway, Descalay's fucking pissed because nobody does a puzzle better than him and lives to tell the tale.
Mm-hmm. He's like fighting again. He ends up like breaking the controls during it, and like the mech starts flailing about, and it collapses into the sea, but they're able to escape. We get like these flashbacks to Melina and Oswald throughout their life. They have happy memories together. They remember her death. Melina like gave Janice a pendant before she died, and she's been like wearing it this whole film. And they sort of like get up, and like Melina just has to explain that death is just a reality of life, and there was nothing he could do. He needs to find a new life for himself. She has to go now. Her home planet needs her.
I will say 2 things.
Yeah.
First is, I know enough multiple systems that I think there's a very obvious solution here that everybody's ignoring. For the moral about, you got to accept death, etc., etc. 2 is, most of this is pretty rote, but there was one line that actually stood out to me, and like, it's thank you for loving me. Did that one also like hit home for you?
Yeah.
I think, and as somebody who's like dealt with a lot of grief and heartbreak, I think that speaks to something very real. And you can say as many platitudes as you want about like, oh, death is part of life, we got to accept it, yada yada yada. But I think like that line feels like it was written by somebody who actually gets it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm just thinking of the Lemony Snicket quote. If you have ever lost someone who you cared a lot about, you know exactly how it feels, and if you haven't, you can't possibly understand how it feels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So, they break. Oswald's like sobbing. And Janice Melina just, like, gives a farewell to her father, to Luke, and to Professor Layton. And then Janice resumes control.
Mm-hmm.
And they explain that, well, they can always, she may be gone, but they can always remember her, and through that she'll live on.
Mm-hmm. And then Inspector Grosky's like, okay, right, so I do still have to arrest you because you kidnapped like 500 people, though.
And yeah, Oswald gets arrested, but he does get to play one last song.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different song this time, and Janice is singing it with him. As it turns out, the Ambrosians live forever not because of some magical elixir, but because they are remembered.
Lame.
Uh-huh.
Boo!
And there's like this little line at the end where they're like, so I guess, do you think Janice was a reincarnation of the Queen? I guess?
And Layton's like, sure, what the hell, why the hell not, Luke? Let's get off this stupid island.
We get the credits, very fun little, like, set of images. I do love, like, we see, Amelia with, like, at her grandfather's grave. We see, like, Oswald and, like, all the, like, goons he hired in, like, prison garb, like, performing. We get, like, Luke with, like, the wolves taking off the little augmentations. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get, like, a little post-credits, end of framing device where, the record that, Layton and Luke were listening to at the start of the film finishes playing, and, coming into Layton's office is Janice herself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end of the movie.
So, no, I would say this is not, like, the best written movie for the most part, but
yeah,
like, solid animation, great score. It is, I would say it's a good, like, vibes movie, you know?
Yeah. It's a very enjoyable watch. It's very beautifully animated. The score is really nice. I think the voice actors do a great job. It's a very fun movie. I would say I can't rate it as an adaptation, but as just a movie in general, I'd give it I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
I'd probably give it like a 3, but I think for like a kid who hasn't seen that many movies, it would probably be a 4 or a 5.
Yeah. This is like a good kid's introduction to like
kids' introduction to death.
Kids' introduction to death and death game stories. Give this to a kid on like his 8th birthday, and then on his like 13th, you give him Danganronpa. It's nice. Let me see. Let me see if we have any questions. If you want to send in a question, you can send it in to the mailbag on our Discord channel. You can find that either through our Twitter at VGTMTP or our newly established co-host, which is also VGTMTP.
Mm.
Let me see.
Twitter is just self-destructing so much faster than I expected.
Uh-huh.
It is.
It really just happened. I guess that's the big thing that happened over the last month since our last episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got 3 questions on Twitter. I forgot to make a Discord post, I guess. So, first question from Kitty Cat Herder. Do you think Professor Layton could take on another puzzle-heavy series? And could a character from that series take on Professor Layton adventure? I.e., could Layton take on Resident Evil 1? I think he could, but I don't know how he'd handle against the boss fights.
Professor, this crest is shaped like a lizard, and this hole is also shaped like a lizard. Good job, Luke. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to beat this man to death before he can bite me again. I think if you put Layton in, like, an actual death game, he would still just completely... He would solve it immediately, and the mastermind would get so mad at him.
Yeah, he would find a way, like, into the back rooms and, like, fight, like, the guy in charge. I'm thinking of, like, I think Professor Layton could easily handle a Monkey Island.
Oh, without a doubt. Listen, he can sword fight, he can do puzzles.
He can probably figure out how to, like, improvise and, find, fun, what's the word I'm looking for? Substitutions for things. Yeah, he'd do great in just about any adventure game,
just
probably.
Imagining Layton doing fucking Leisure Suit Larry. I had to leave Luke at home for this one, and I don't want to admit that I'm honestly a little bit lost without him.
Jesus Christ. Him having I'm sorry, I can't think about this too hard.
This condom is labeled with a C, but this one is labeled with an E. What could it mean?
Next question from Jasmine Marsh. What's your favorite kind of puzzle? Picross.
Oh,
Easy.
Picross is pretty good. I like that little peg solitaire that they got at Cracker Barrel.
Ooh, yeah.
But if we're talking like video game puzzles, I tend to like anything that involves like anything that's like set up like a fake board game is always pretty fun. Like they just invent a little board game for you to sort out.
Yeah.
I feel like the puzzles I usually have trouble with are the ones that involve like actual mechanical manipulation. Though it depends on the complexity of the mechanism, obviously.
Yeah. Portal's also a good puzzle game. Next question from Jasmine. Do y'all have a puzzle game that you wish you could vacuum the memories of out of you so you could re-experience it?
This one I'm gonna have to like go through my Steam library and be like, can I think of any? Let's see. No, not really.
I can't think of one specific puzzle, but like, if I were to like pick a puzzle-based game, I guess I'd go with Portal 2, maybe?
That's not a bad
just
pick.
Yeah.
Oh shit, no. There's one...
Oh, I know what I want to erase some memories out of. Specifically the Secret of Monkey Island, and specifically the puzzle where you're like drowning and
That's such a good joke.
Yeah, the solution to escaping from drowning, which you have to do in 10 minutes because that's how long he can hold his breath, is to just pick up the objects holding you down and put them in your inventory. That's a good bit.
I played the new Monkey Island, and part of the joke of that is like he's gotten a good deal older and a little out of practice, so now he can only hold his breath for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Honestly, this isn't like traditionally a puzzle game because it's structured as a VN, but because of like what you have to do to survive, it sort of becomes a puzzle game. I wouldn't mind playing Long Live the Queen for the first time again.
Oh, neat. Yeah, that would be good.
That one's basically it's like a visual novel RPG kind of Princess Maker style thing where you know you're playing as a princess who's recently ascended to the throne, and like you're developing your skills, but also like there are several assassination plots against you, so if you don't meet certain checkpoints, like hidden checkpoints by certain dates, you're fucked. It's pretty good. Oh, the Sexy Brutale though, that game was fantastic. I would love to the Talos Principle. I'm remembering all these fucking puzzle games that I have not played in years, but that were totally dope.
Yeah.
Talos Principle was so good.
Let me see. Yeah, there's some good puzzle games out there. I recommend them. Oh, I'm looking at, let's see. Oh, I'm looking at some puzzle games. You know, for as much as Braid sucks, or as much as Jonathan Blow sucks, the, like, bit at the end of Braid where you have to, like, reverse the, like, whole, like, platforming section at the end, and it reveals, like, actually, you were, like, trying to kidnap the princess, and the big guy was trying to save her. That's a good bit. Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Also, The Witness is also, like, again, fuck Jonathan Blow, but dude makes some good puzzles. You gotta hand it to him.
Uh-huh. I do have written in my Goaty, I've been writing like a big Goaty co-host post, and one of the like little things I wrote is like, a special award for, regrettably, you gotta hand it to him, and I wrote it for Immortality.
What game is
let's
that?
See.
I don't
it's
know that
the
one.
new Sam Barlow game. It came out a couple months ago. I think it's got a great story. It's got some neat like themes and concepts, but it is also kind of a Sam Barlow game. Let's see. Shadow Sandbag asks, which existing Layton game would you want adapted to a movie format? So,
I want the Unwound Future or whatever, but I want it live action specifically so that I can see who they get to play like regular Luke and future Luke.
Uh-huh. That would be good. The only thing that's really immediately coming to mind as someone who hasn't really played a lot of Layton or any Layton games is like, I want to see the Professor Layton Ace Attorney crossover.
Do you think we could get Takashi Miike back for that?
Yeah, get him back for that. Make sure that the guy playing Professor Layton has like beady little like contacts and a big top hat. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
I can dig it.
All right, that wraps up our questions. So, do you have any movie you want to talk about next month?
I cannot think of a single video game movie right now. Wait. No. It's entering my brain. I'm in my mind palace. I'm like Professor Layton right now. Like the room is growing dark, and I'm just seeing visions of the medieval weapons I have hung up on my wall. I'm seeing visions of the little stuffed beetle that my girlfriend bought for me a while back. I'm seeing a big poster that says, racism bad, but what if? And I think next month I want to watch the World of Warcraft movie.
Okay,
or is it just Warcraft? I mean, it's the same fucking difference. I think it's just
Warcraft. Yeah, I think it might be based on like the RTS. But yeah, Warcraft. Let's talk about the Warcraft movie. And we'll learn all about how racism is bad, but what if?
I don't actually know if that's what the Warcraft movie is about. I'm just kind of like making an educated guess. Because I feel like the two themes of Warcraft, from what I remember, are racism is bad, but what if? And bitches be crazy.
Yeah.
That second one I remember is very fundamental to the lore.
I think that, I swear to God, I remember seeing like goofy screenshots of like how they rendered like the orc actors. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Alright. I think that's it, so let's do some plugs. I'm Dan. You can find me at a lot of places. You can find all those places at biggerchallenge.card.co. You've got Pot of Greed, a Yu-Gi-Oh podcast. We are almost done talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! GX as a whole. And in 2023, we will be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds.
5D's nuts.
5D's nuts.
I'm sure you've already made that joke at least like 3 different times.
Oh, basically whenever we bring it up, Max is just defaults to saying 5D's nuts. It's great. You can listen to the Sonic Shuffle, Sonic Lore podcast. The most recent episode to go up as of this recording is our 100th episode, where we talked about Devin's favorite character, Dr. Starline, in the IDW Sonic series, Bad Guys. You can listen to Wow Cool Robot, Gundam podcast. I'm on to talk about Gundam Build Fighters with Max and Yuria. Gundam Build Fighters, fun show. It is I think it, in some sense, I feel like it is spiritually, the sequel to G Gundam. Very fun show. I highly recommend it. And you can visit, like, my Twitter, my Tumblr, my co-host. Twitter and Tumblr are bigger challenge. Co-host is just big challenges. You can visit my art Tumblr. I've been doing like a 38-day art challenge, so I'll be uploading stuff there. You can visit, at Xbox_holiday, where Usher celebrates holidays with Xbox. Happy George H.W. Bush Death Day. Yeah, and that's it for me. Where can we find you, Maxie?
You can find me on Twitter and Tumblr, and I'm pretty sure co-host too, but I don't use that very often. I'm going to say I don't use that very often yet, because God only knows how usable Twitter will be. But you can find me on definitely Twitter and Tumblr at Max Knightley. That's MaxKnightley. There's no at. It's just at Max Knightley. No, what I was going to say is, for real though, if you have a lead on somebody who can, like, figure out some art assets, like, hit me up at, that's Maxie Knightley, MAXIE, @gmail.com. And then, right now, the only podcast I'm on that is actively recording is Eidolon Playtest, the best actual play podcast in the world, and you can take that to the fucking bank. We are currently putting out Eidolon Ska and Eidolon Disco, which is, they are two period pieces about mystery-solving teens in a town full of, psychic powers-wielding psychics. Kind of didn't know where that sentence was going. But it is a blast so far. It's still early on, so it's a great time to start listening. Cannot recommend it enough. It is very fun to record, and I think we do a fantastic job with it.
Yeah. And you can find us on Twitter at VGTMTP, on co-host, cohost.org/VGTMTP. You can find our Discord, where we'll, like, post, like, we'll keep people updated on, asks and whatnot. And that's about it. So, I think, until next, also, we're on Noisepace. That's noisepace.xyz. It's a podcast network. Lots of cool shows on there. Want to give a shout out to Sounds About Light, a Kingdom Hearts podcast. You can listen. I want to give a shout out to Digimon Ghost Gaze, Digimon Ghost Game podcast. Prime Cuts about Transformers. 0 to Zero, the wildest superhero movie podcast you'll ever listen to. I think that is everything. So, until next time, I'm Dan.
I'm Maxie.
And this ain't no game.